Hello, everyone. Welcome to Abnormal Investigations. I've got an encounter for you that was sent in. Pretty interesting encounter, really. This one comes out of Kansas, so pretty interesting, and it's one I think that you're going to enjoy. It does have a little mystery to it, and it makes you wonder what is going on in our world, guys. What has changed since we were young? What's happened? Why are things different? Why are the things that we used to watch on TV we were told did not exist seem to be existing now? What's going on? Let's get into this one. It was a hot, dry summer in 1998, Mike, when I actually met the man they called the Prairie Vampire. My name is Bill Jenkins. My name? Yep, I don't care if you share it. I'm Timmy's father, actually. And I ran the grain elevator on the west side of the Prairie Creek Mill. We had all seen him, of course. Everyone had. We all had our theories, our jokes. He was the one thing that made Kansas life seem a little less ordinary. I'll never forget the day. It was Monday night when my old Ford pickup threw a belt on that county road that runs right past his place. The moon was out. A silver sliver was only to be seen. Not much help for working on an engine. I was covered in grease, cussing up and down that old truck under my breath when the headlights picked up movement. He came walking out of the darkness of his own property. All I could see was the silhouette of him against the sky, tall, a shadow made real. He wasn't wearing his usual suit, just a dark long sleeve shirt with his trousers. Didn't say anything at first. He just stopped a few feet from the truck and looked at the engine. And this was kind of freaky, but he said, "Need a help, Bill?" His voice wasn't the monster growl we imagined. It was soft, quiet, a little raspy, like a man who hadn't spoken much in years. I was startled almost out of my boots. "Mr. Croft," I stammered, wiping my hands on a rag. "I didn't see you there." Just kind of looked at me and nodded, and he looked at the engine. And then he said, "Fan belt, looks like." "Yeah," I snapped it. "I guess. I'm not sure. Got a spare in the back, but I told him my wrench that I normally used on this old truck that fit was left at home." Without a word, he turned and disappeared into the darkness of his yard. I thought about just making a run for it, but the truck wasn't going anywhere, and he already knew who I was and who the truck belonged to. A few minutes later, he reappeared carrying a small, worn leather satchel. He set it down, opened it up, and pulled out a perfect set of socket wrenches. He didn't take my light. He didn't talk. He just started working, his hands moving with a practiced, efficient grace in the dark. The man worked faster and cleaner than any mechanic I knew. As he worked, I noticed something odd. The air around him seemed cooler. It wasn't the summer breeze, it was a localized chill, but sometimes I just wondered if maybe it was because I was getting help and he was so proficient at it that I was relaxing. But there was a smell. Not a smell of death or decay, as the stories go, but a faint, sharp scent I couldn't place. So I spoke to him. Joking around, I said, "You're out late," I offered, trying to break the silence. He said back to me, tightening the last bolt. He snapped the tools back into his satchel. "Sunlight is harsh and it's distracting," he said. "I see better in the dark with these old eyes, and work is best done in the darkness, in the peace." Must be tough working at night all the time. He paused, looking up at me, his pale eyes catching the dim moonlight. There was a profound weirdness in his gaze, something that had nothing to do with being a monster and everything to do with being profoundly, terribly human. You get used to the quiet, he said. He closed his satchel and handed me my rag. The belt was perfect. Oh, you Silas. How can I pay you back? I asked him. He shook his head, already turning to leave, and he said, just get home safely to your boy. I froze. He knew my name and he knew I had a son. How do you? I started to ask. He stopped at the edge of his property and looked back over his shoulder. This is a small town, Bill. I may keep to myself, but I know who lives here. I'm not a phantom. And then he was gone, swallowed by the shadows of his unkept yard. I climbed into my truck, started the engine, and drove home. My hands were shaking. The tools, I realized later, I still had them. Beautifully made, and they were old, almost old fashioned German steel. That night stayed with me, a quiet, humming puzzle. I didn't know what to think. The story of the monster that I'd heard about this old man. I didn't know if it was true or not. But he had a sunlight issue, and things were running through my mind that night that shouldn't have been. It almost was like a story that shouldn't even exist. Mike had explained his schedule, his pale skin, but it didn't explain the chill or the look in his eyes. Now, I kept those tools in my shed, a little secret just for me. For years, they were just tools. I didn't return them because I was too afraid. If he would have came, I would have gave them to him. Then around 2012, we had that awful drought. The soil turned to concrete, dust was everywhere, and the heat was relentless. I felt like I was dying. One sweltering July evening, the air thick and heavy, I was driving past the old Croft place. It had been sold to some developer who was trying to turn it into a vineyard. A fool's errand in this soil, if you ask me, but he was trying. I saw an old well digger's rig. It was up near the house. I pulled over, curious. The crew foreman, a guy named Dave from Wichita, was swearing and frustrated. Can't get through this ground, he said, wiping sweat from his eyebrow. Hit bedrock or something solid, as a bank vault. I don't know what it is. I've never hit anything this solid. I remembered Silas had mentioned a long time ago that he was burying things by an old oak tree, and the general talk to the people in town was he dug stuff and buried it on his property all the time. So I mentioned it to the guy driving the rig. Maybe it's just tough clay, Dave. That whole area around the house is weird. Looks like it's been dug and redug and buried. Weird is right. The ground temperature is 20 degrees cooler right here than 10 feet away. He had a thermal temperature reader. Dave spat, pointing a greasy finger at the ground near where Silas used to dig. This was all getting way too weird for me. That same unexplainable chill I'd felt years ago, I felt it prickle on my arms almost. 2 days later, the drought broke with a ferocious storm, flooding everywhere. The well digger's hole near the old house collapsed, earth giving way to reveal not bedrock, but a small, carefully constructed, stone-lined chamber buried just a few feet down. Now, this wasn't a basement, Mike, or a root cellar. It was too small, too deliberately hidden, also. Now, the county sheriff called me down there because I, in my younger days, was a lockpick, knowing I had a history with the place. When I looked inside with floodlights, it was empty, except for a few boxes. But the walls and the stone walls of the little bunker were slick with moisture even after days of dry weather. And the air in there, the air was musky, old smelling, and it was ice cold. which didn't surprise me because it was underground. It was strange and inexplicable, but the strangest thing was what happened a week later. The storm had washed up all sorts of things that started coming out of the ground, tires and everything. He was burying everything, you name it. The ground around the oak tree where Silas had dug his watch graves had shifted, revealing something new. And it wasn't a watch. It was a single heavy, ancient-looking coin. It looked like a Roman currency. I picked it up, my fingers brushing the centuries of Kansas soil off of it. On one side was a profile of some emperor, on the other side a wolf with two infants. I pocketed it. It was a new secret that I was now going to keep. There was another trunk that ended up coming uncovered. This is the weirdest part of it all. Once we took the trunk out, they asked me to open it. It had an old lock on it, which was pretty easy to pick. It was the skeleton type. Those are really nothing to get into. So I opened it, and whenever I did, what revealed inside was something really, 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 really weird. There was old gold jewelry. But one of the weirdest things was there was photos of a bunch of people back in Germany from a long time ago. Old black and white photos. You could tell by the town and the clothing that they were very old photos. And in one of them was Silas. And what was weird was Silas looked the same in that photo as he did right before he had died here when I seen him that night. Now, how could he have looked the same all the way back then and now? They found a black velvet, almost like a pouch you would keep diamonds in as you see in the movies. It was huge, and I was sure it was full of old coins. And whenever they poured it out inside of that box that we had opened, it was nothing but a bunch of teeth. The sheriff closed it quickly, took all the old jewelry, put it back into the box, shut it, and locked it. That was the last I ever heard of that box, and that place was later sold to the rock quarry. They dug it just a few days later, making a huge crater there. Everything that was there is now gone. But sometimes I wonder, was Silas a vampire and did he allow me to go that night? Is that why all the tires and things were found on his property? They even found 4 cars that were completely buried down by the creek. He had had a mini excavator, and he had buried cars of people that had went missing. But the sheriff said it couldn't have been Silas because Silas would have been too old to have done that. It just didn't make sense. But something inside of me still tells me today, even though I don't believe in the old folk stories, that Mr. Silas was older, wiser, and something that wasn't supposed to exist. Why did he spare me that night is what I have the most trouble with. Why did he allow me to survive? I don't know. He told me to go home to my boy. Would a creature like that, so evil, with that many teeth, that many victims, would he really care that if I made it home? Why would he allowed me to survive that night? It was a perfect ambush for him. I was broke down. I couldn't go nowhere on a road that nobody travels at night. And if he had killed those people and hid those cars, why was I not the next victim? If any of your subscribers know Mike, I would like to know also because it bothers me knowing, am I here by luck? Am I here because he felt sorry for me? Am I here? I don't know, and it bothers me so bad. I need to know why I survived that night. It's weird walking around in life wondering why you're here whenever the odds point that you shouldn't be. I don't know, but it bothers me, and I hope you all have enjoyed my encounter. Well, thank you for sharing that. I'm not going to say anything. I'm going to wait and see what everybody says in the chat. I'm interested to see what they say. I have some thoughts, but I want to see what you all say, and we'll see what happens. It's very interesting, compelling. He said he still has the coin. He did keep the coin and the tools, so I guess you do have proof. So I don't know. I do look forward to seeing what everybody says. Thank you, everyone, for listening. I hope you all enjoyed this encounter. And until next time, guys, keep your head on a swivel. Don't be something's dinner. And don't forget, like, subscribe, ring that bell so you'll get the latest encounters, guys. I have a ton of them to release. Thank you all for listening.